वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम्
As far as I can see, as far as time extends, no soul was ever born outside this home. No heart has ever beat outside this song. When will we ever see that we must only be?
Dalmia Adhar, Honorary Convener of Delhi NCR for the Prabha Khaitan Foundation and Ehsas Women of Delhi, warmly welcome you to the momentous unveiling of Return to Innocence, a highly captivating memoir by Nila Madhab, Panda. Our chief guest today is the Nobel Peace Laureate Shri Kailash Satyarthi. Our guests of honor are the British High Commissioner to India, Mr. Alexander Ellis, the renowned actor, writer, and director, Mr. Makarand Deshpande. A very, very warm welcome to you. We are greatly honored to be launching the book authored by the celebrated filmmaker and today's star author, Nila Madhab, Panda, who has skillfully used the powerful medium of cinema over a span of 20-odd years to introduce us to thought-provoking and deeply impactful stories from his journey into the far corners of rural India. But before we begin, allow me to introduce you to the Prabha Khaitan Foundation. The Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a Kolkata-based non-profit trust which was established in the 80s by the late Dr. Prabha Khaitan, an eminent literature, cultural activist, and staunch feminist. Inspired by the cherished vision of our founder and her philosophy, Karm hi Jeevan hai, work is worship, the foundation works relentlessly to create a cultural capital through its activities that propagate the literary and cultural assets of our country. Charting a glorious 40-year journey, we have steadily moved forward by adding multifarious initiatives driven by the spirit of our founder. May I now request Shri Kailash Satyarthi, High Commissioner Alexander Ellis, Mr. Makarand Deshpande, and the celebrated author Nila Madhab Panda to come on to the dais. Can I now invite Shri Kailash Satyarthi to unribbon the book? Kailash ji, aap ruke rahiye. And all the others on the dais, please join him, High Commissioner Ellis, Makarand, and the Prabha Khaitan girls, please come onto the dais so we can.
Nature has forged an unbreakable bond in all hearts and all life. This love is our divine right, and nothing can take it away.
वसुधैव कुटुम्बकम्.
When will we ever see that we must only be to feel?
What a great pleasure to release the book of my very close friend, like my younger brother, And it is always music to my ears when somebody says Madhav, says celebrity director, celebrity filmmaker, celebrity author, because I know him for almost 30 years. And the first time I saw him holding a camera with another friend of mine in some of the remotest parts of India. I think you also traveled to Thailand in Thailand also. And one day I saw a newspaper that Nila Madhab Panda has directed and produced a film, I Am Kalam, many years ago. And I tell you, Pandaji, that we celebrated in our ashram with our children, because I recall the picture of a child on the posters, and that was published in newspapers. I didn't know much about the film, but when it was released, there is a place called Kot Putli near Jaipur, on the way to Jaipur. And we have an ashram, the Rehabilitation Center for Freed Child Slaves and the survivors of trafficking. So it happened only 2 or 3 times when we all decided that we will go to a theater and watch a movie with about 70, 80 survivors of slavery and trafficking. We all cherished that day. And since then we were reading and knowing and meeting and talking to him time to time. Award number 1, award number 2, film award, Padma Shri, this and that. So many more awards are waiting for you. Some months ago when you came to my office and we discussed about this book you were authoring, I was really moved. One of the best phrases I can ever think of is return to innocence. That is his personal journey. Because when Madhav talks, you can feel the songs of rural Odisha, that music. You can feel the smell of the flowers and the Mahanadi area where you were born and grew up. And you can smell the soil in him and his work. That is very well put in all his work, because it is so deep-rooted. And the most deep-rooted thing is the innocence. Many a times I have said it before, that the biggest crime, the biggest sin we as adults do, we ruin and rob of the dreams of our children and innocence. Many people think that innocence means stupidity, foolishness, lack of knowledge. Oh, what innocence is. But it has the deep spiritual meaning. A child is innocent, and childhood is not merely an age. Childhood is simplicity, originality, truthfulness, forgiveness, quest for learning, quest for loving each other. That is childhood. That is innocence. So we kept on making a mistake, teaching our children. You think that I am the one who is against the education? No. What we teach our children, being Hindu or Muslims or Christians, what we have taught our children as their identities to be Indian or Pakistani or Sudanese or American or whatnot. Children, innocent children, are not responsible for creating any boundary, any wall, any border. We, the learned people, we, the people in power, people with a lot of money, have to confess that we are responsible for creating these walls and boundaries and borders on the earth among the human beings. We are the sinner of dividing society. And we keep on dividing so. And this is the time when someone like Madhav Panda raises up and says, return to innocence. Return to innocence. I think this is the message we have to keep with us. If you are still truthful, being in the politics, or being in the business, or being in the bureaucracy, or diplomacy, or wherever, politics, if you are still have the courage to forgive others, if you are still transparent, if you are still humble, it is not because you are learned and rich and powerful people. It is because that innocence, that childhood still resides under you. So today, while congratulating him, please take back the message. Return to innocence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kailash Satyarthi-ji. Those are indeed words that we shall cherish in our hearts for posterity. And each one of us, they will echo with us all the way home and forever. Can I request High Commissioner Mr. Alexander Ellis to share his thoughts with us?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think one of the first rules of speaking is that you should never follow a Nobel laureate. I shall abandon this excellent advice in my brief words to you today. And I want to thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am, for giving the opportunity for me to host you. It's a great honor to have you all here. I've noted down in my notebook, visit Orissa. That's my first conclusion from this event. I haven't been there yet, and I suppose there is a sort of somebody with us as well, Dr. Prabha Kaitan as well. I think it's to have an inspiration like that and to give such inspiration long after your own passing to everybody in this room, I think is a great thing. And the people who create institutions that last beyond themselves and give and grow, I think, is one of the greatest things you can do as a person at any stage of life. If you're an outsider, and I lived in India a long time ago, and I came back here. I lived in Madhya Pradesh when I was 18, which is a wonderful experience. And then to come back here now, sort of 35 years later, India has many things. One of the things it has is a tremendous physicality. The physicality of every aspect of this country is so strong. You can't miss it in everything, in its color, in its texture. Look at the clothes you're wearing, in everything. And I don't think I've ever been in a country, maybe Brazil is the only other country, of similar impact of its physical self on a person coming to it. It's almost indescribable from seeing the sea down in Tamil Nadu. I was walking up by the Gangotri Glacier for a few days last month, and everywhere you have this sense of the strength. Use the word soil. I think it's just there. And I guess this book is about the threat to that. And the threat to that physicality, the transformation of that physicality in ways which are harmful. And if you harm the land, you harm everything on it. You can't escape that. You can build as many walls as you like, but you cannot escape the consequence of harming your land. And given this vast threat to not just this vast land, but frankly, the entire globe, I was just sneaking a quick peek of the book. And how do you respond to that? How does a human being, how do you respond as an individual to something so large? Now, you have the great advantage in a way that this country asks that of any motivated individual. India is so big that to the outsider, I don't understand it. I don't understand things which are 20 times beyond my understanding in terms of denominator, in terms of scale. But one of the interesting things in this country is how people deal with vast scale in a human way. And how do you respond to these things? And what this is, I suppose, is a response to that. How do you express, how do I find that way? And so I love that quote, which I'm going to steal and use many times. Sometimes reality is too complex. Stories give it form. That must be right. Stories do give form. Art is a way of finding form to deal with enormity and abstraction in a way which is difficult for us. Because if you talk about, I can give you a fantastic speech about climate change with a whole series of statistics. I can bore you to death on the subject. But in the end, it's a very human consequence through the consequences for the land and therefore the people who are on it. And so I really admire this way. This is a way of responding to what is happening, to what you experience. And I immediately thought about, I think that's interesting, an artistic response, a creative response to what you see. But the truth is, all through history, art has been a form of expression of response to enormity, an attempt to humanize it and distill it into understandable expression which has effect. And I'm just getting back into the poets of my country who responded to what they saw happening around them, romantic poets. And immediately as I sat down, I started thinking about an expression, the shades of the prison house begin to close upon the growing boy. And it's very depressing, though Wordsworth tries to say that there's still joy, the shades of the prison house. How education can screw you up, basically. The shades of the prison house. And he felt it very deeply in his life, I think, that how education distorted his natural response to everything he saw around him. And art effectively was the way in which he went back to innocence. He had to express, and that's what his poetry did, I think, was to express the common humanity behind the prison house coming into each one of us as we grow. And I once quoted it, by the way, to my father when he was trying to give me a lecture about how I should study harder. And this got me off it because he was quite impressed that I knew a little bit of Wordsworth, so it got me a little bit of spare time. And I think the other thing about it is, in the response to what is happening to our earth, it has a very scary bit, but at the same time a characteristic which is good. It is a global phenomenon, caused in no considerable part by my own country, has consequences for everybody. But that consequence means that it is a thing which is understood and expressed in different ways, but with the same cause in countries all over the world. And we live in the most divided world I've known since I started in diplomacy, which was 33 years ago. And one of the good things, and there aren't many good things about climate change, is it actually brings together people towards a common cause. And the genius of art, I think of music maybe above all, dare I say it, I shouldn't say it, but a film as well, is its ability to reach audiences all over the world. So I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted you've made me think about this, and think about how art and education connect to the issue of climate change. And I'm just very, very glad to have you all here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. High Commissioner Ellis, you have taken us back to our school days and childhood, where romantic British poets were interned in our bones, and anyone who spoke British English was a cut above the others. Thank you so much. Can I now ask Makaran Deshpande, and I'm using your first name, I'm not calling you Mr. because I think you're much younger than me. And you're a much more pulsating human being to be called Mr. So can you please come up here and talk to us?
I'm an actor. Give me lines, I'll speak. So, it's one thing is to be a creator, and one is to really react. I think what Nila has done, I've read the book. He's reacted as an adult to his childhood. He's reacted through his child's eyes to the nature and felt the loss. I think that famous line of Emily Dickinson is, the quality of loss. What is loss? You know, we say, एक नदी बहती थी अब नहीं बहती. ये कोई loss नहीं. When there's a beautiful line in Hindi. पानी का बूंद, the water drop. बूंद होने से पहले वो क्या था? The water drop, what was it before? And then the whole journey goes to, eventually leads, not only to the river, eventually to the grains. And I think that is what he's trying to connect. We live so very present. I was shooting in Hyderabad. I have to reach. He's giving me lovely business class ticket or Prabha Khatan. And I'm here meeting the great Kailas Satyarthi ji. And the greatest thing about him is just changed his surname. Got Truth Seeker. So it just tells you the best way to live after you've lived. Because I think Nila has lived quite of course, he'll create more. But the sizable, what I've read through, I mean, including the whole bicycle, the whole, your relation with Baba, his chacha, actually, is incredible. You have somebody, when Kailaji says that, you know, education, where do you learn? Can you learn in your home place or hometown? You do. River teaches you. Mountain teaches you. हमको हमेशा से बताया गया पर्वत जैसे ऊपर देखो ऊंचा देखो सागर की तरह गहराई में जाओ. You know, we are always told that. But it remains just as a एक मुहावरा है या कोई एक just saying है. And we connect that with our pride or ego. We don't understand that. See, look at, when you look up, look at the mountain, सागर की गहराई. And what war does? सागर की गहराई से लेके आसमान की ऊंचाई गोला बारूद से नाप रहा है. So in any which case, where are we with education, with whatever? So leave that. I think Return to Innocence has just created that. I mean, he asked me, how did you finish reading? I said, I just started, I couldn't stop. And I was shooting. And I was lucky enough that there were 3-4 hours, there was no shot. And I just went through it. And there's so many stories. Please read it. Please read it. This Ramesh character, his friend from scheduled caste, how he made the football, they played. My God. And he was constant. What I loved about the whole book was he was so constant in his life. You know, you got to live life also with intensity, I feel. You cannot just say that I am born, Okay, what is your birth date? Okay, that's your zodiac sign. That's how you are. You're going to react. That's your characteristics, and that's what and so you are going to prosper at certain age. And this man didn't know his birth date only. In the book, he's called as monsoon child. But that's what he was told to him. And then he created his dream world. But the best part about his dream world was far more real. Normally, Kailash, when dream world gets shattered when reality comes. And his best part was his magic world, dream world is real. So it holds that ground. Tarkovsky said this incredible line in Sculpting in Time, imagination is less richer than reality. And it is. If anybody can live, I feel, through art, of course, songs, whatever, literature, as we say about, is the best way to express ourselves. Like we say that nature's every green is gold. But gold doesn't last. Who's seen that gold? I think Neela has seen it. That Mahanadi. And thank you very much for writing this memoir and calling me. I'm too happy. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the award for the Best Supporting Actor in a revolutionary role goes to Makarand Deshpande. Can we give him a hand, please? Thank you, Makarand. Before I invite the author and the versatile conversationalist Ritika onto the dais, I must narrate a certain anecdote to you. And this has special relevance today because Kailash Satyarthi ji is here, and the boy I'm talking about is the great-grandson of Ramadhar ji, who Kailash Satyarthi knew in his younger days. Last night, while I sat writing out my speech, my grandson, all of 6 years, who has now moved to Dubai, and in my eyes, I may be a mushy grandmother, but he's a child prodigy. So he said, Dida, he's forbidden to call me Dadi. So he says, Dida, why are you up so late? And I said, Baba, I'm writing a speech because I have to go to a book launch at the British High Commission. He said, what is the book about? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he's 6 years old and this is his conversation. So I said, the book is about environmental issues. It's being launched in the presence of the Nobel Peace Laureate, whatever I told him. So he said, oh, I'm feeling so bad, I'm going to miss this event. But you know what? I wish I was there because at the end of it, I would have sung, Heal the World. You know, this child doesn't stop astounding me. And Kailash ji, Nila Madhab, Makarand, High Commissioner, this is the power of the words and the mission and the message that you all spread. I'm sorry, I'm just too moved by him, and I had to narrate this to you today. Can I invite the author, Nila Madhab Panda, and the conversationalist, Ritika Kochar, to please come onto the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin this conversation, we have a short teaser of a film made by the author that streams on Sony Live on the 9th of August. Am I right? Yeah, it's 7-episode series. It's a series, it's not a film, I'm sorry. I'm delighted to introduce to you our star author of the day, Nila Madhab Panda. A film producer and director, he has made over 70 films and documentaries on burning social issues like child labor, education, water scarcity, sanitation, and climate change, along with several other developmental challenges that we face in India today. Many of his sensitive productions are based on his personal experiences. His films, which have been described as entertaining and yet socially relevant, have won him several awards and received wide acclaim. And you've just seen a teaser of that, you can know why. In conversation with him, we have the magical Ritika Kochar, and I say magical because she's the author of a magic realist series titled Weapons of Kalki, as well as a children's book, Ghosts of Landa, and she has authored a women-centric series, the first of which, titled Wild Things, is already out, and the second, Bahadur Sahiba, is scheduled to be released soon. Ritika writes on art and culture for leading publications such as The Hindu, Business Standard, The Open Magazine, and India Today, and she has conceptualized a show this year on myth making and divine animals. That sounds super exciting. She uses art, culture, and mythology as her prism to talk about gender, social politics, conservation, sustainability, and history. So this promises to be a super scintillating session. Over to you, Ritika.
Madhav, we've known each other now 24 years, I believe, and the reason we know each other is because of the British High Commission, where I was working with you on one of the first films you worked on, which is Climate's First Orphans. And we were professional friends, okay, but there was this one evening, I think it must be about 9 o'clock in the evening, when you called me from Bolangir, and you were just almost in tears. You just seen a cyclone, you just seen the worries, what was going on. It was your hometown. And there's always this personal aspect of all this to you. But you've spent the past 24 years making these amazing films. What made you come to a book?
Thank you, everyone, for your presence. Thank you, Kailashi. Thank you, Makarand Bhai. Thank you, Alex, for hosting us. Writing a book was not something I had ever thought. I grew up, with whatever humble circumstance. I grew up as a storyteller. So I used to call myself in the school also Kahani Khor. So by that, I used to impress other children to win or to find food, to do anything at home also. I thought that itself, in childhood itself, I realized that there's this man who was a boatman. I grew up in River Mahanadi, so there are a lot of boatmen. One old boatman would carry me in the morning always, because that guy was a storyteller and he always wanted to tell stories. And he had nobody would listen his stories. So I would go with him for 3 hours, leaving the school, to hear that. How it impressed me that he would tell the whole history of the village to everything, what I brought it into the book also, which nobody knew in the whole village. And I felt that I have a responsibility where I grew up. I had a responsibility to tell all these stories. So initially I started telling story as responsibility, then it becomes passion, that it becomes profession. So writing a book it's not that I'm, somebody said that you're not that old to write a biography. I said, no, I know, I'm not old. But I thought, like I said, every film of mine comes from where I have seen us faced, and I realized that I have very little time to tell a lot of stories, and I can't make 100 films to tell those stories. So I thought at least there are times, because now my son is 18 years old, he's studying music in San Francisco, and if I tell him also he doesn't have time, I thought let me document that. Initially I thought I'll document it, but as a villager, where I grew up, everything is about emotion. So there's nothing which is like lane then, give and take or create a professional relationship, because I grew up in a world where everything is about, anything you ask is about relationship, emotion, and that innocence. So me grew up from that village to where I traveled. I realized it's just not more than 4 decades. I incidentally started doing, we started doing a lot of issue-based film, women rights, drought, blah, 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 and getting into environmental film. But suddenly I realized that, oh God, in 4 decades, just 4 to 5 decades since I was born, we have lost everything. So today we are at a stage that it's almost like no return stage. Today almost, I think the event was about to cancel because of Delhi flood. So we face that every day. So I thought, let me put that with my emotion as my memoirs, what is just happened yesterday, so that it is there for others to read or do something about it. I thought it is our responsibility to bring those stories to people, otherwise we'll lose that time. So that was my anger also, because there is a angst which happened when I become adult, because it grew so fast. I mean, development is not wrong, buying a spaceship is not wrong. But when we do that, we don't realize what is the impact we're going to get. Because the first film which I did in 2006, it was about when I saw lonely hand pump inside the sea. Why lonely hand pump? Because of the sea level rise. Those 4 villages which was submerged by the sea in Odisha only. So the idea of the book was to say that, look, this was the only thing we survived, this earth planet has survived for all these years, is that innocence. So since the inception of this planet, the energy we have consumed in like just 4 decades is equivalent to what the whole age of the planet has been. So I thought it's better to put in a book.
Okay, there's a character who, Makrant, me, all of us, whoever have read the book so far, I think this is a character who's stayed with us the most. There are other characters who we have differing views on which character stayed with us, but this one has always stayed with us. So this is Baba, your chacha basically. And I'm going to read out a little bit because I think all of us feel in some way that this is the soul of the book. Gobinda Chandra Panda, or Baba, my father's older brother, had the soul of a tree. His roots lay deep in the soil too. In my harsh childhood, I found shelter in the shade of his gentle tree-like ages. But it wasn't just me. The village folk looked up to him as shrubs to an old people for wisdom and guidance. On these still, silent summer mornings, Baba would gently wake me up. Together we would set off on one or the other of his assignments. One of them was collecting seeds throughout the summer. At this time, I had completed just a little over a decade of life, and my sleepy legs had to jog to keep up with Baba's long, smooth strides. We made a pair, 2 thin men, one old and one little, as we went about silently gathering the seeds that people threw away. We picked up seeds of cucumber, melon, watermelon, jamun, imli, mango, whatever people ate. We would wash them, dry them out, and then push them into the soil in our backyard, which functioned as a kind of nursery till they sprouted. And then we waited for the rains to arrive. And soon as the wind grew thick and fragrant with moisture, Baba would take me along to scatter the seeds in empty patches of land in and around the villages, at the edge of fields, and in various other green patches surrounding the village, even in neighboring villages. When I was very young, this going out planting puzzled me. I enjoyed our sojourns, but why would he plant them all over the village and not in a patch of our own? When I asked him, he said, wait, you'll find out one day. Baba was just a loving caretaker through the hot summer, and those trees that he planted, slowly they matured over years. They grew up with me, nurtured by the soil and water of my village, and by my Baba's example. When I turned 16, I realized that most of the mango trees had grown much taller than me, and they had borne sweet, delicious fruit. Why have you written this book this way? Why? We've all talked about the innocence that this book has. Why have you chosen to write this book in this way when you have so many other stories to tell?
Well, we don't realize suddenly the heroes have changed, Either it's in a Hollywood film, or suddenly somebody sending a spaceship, or somebody taking over your brain, somebody owning the whole social media. I felt these are heroes. Baba is a hero because he collect all the seeds and we go and put that. And today, after 30 years, all the mango trees, jamun trees, I have been part of putting that. these are the heroes. See, one of the chapter which I have put on Kailasi, when I started working with him, I didn't realize I started working as a professional, And then for year after year after year, I had visited many times when Kailasi was not there also to ashram. I think this is a place which what you call Swarg, because that's where you find the innocence. These are those innocent smiles, millions of innocent smiles, millions of innocent soul. Probably some people would have died, people would have been drug addicted. Here is a man who has saved millions of children. Changed the way you should look at children. That changed the future of the world. Do anybody care, bother to talk about it? That's heroism, not Spider-Man. Sorry, I'm kidding. But we don't realize the journey, what we are doing. We suddenly become somebody else because we are, this is what I always say, from joint family to nuclear family to singular family. Today, you are not even your own emotion or family because you are being directed, being possessed by somebody else. Because what we see on phone today, it's so much that you don't even dictate, somebody is dictating you and you don't realize. By the time you simply say that I'm hungry, I want to eat pizza, there are 10 options which will come into your head and say that eat this, eat this, eat this, So I'm saying, where does this human stand today? As human, we say that this is one creature on this planet who feel that we have a brain. We can change the world. But the only creature who is, screwing up its own land. That's where we are today. So I felt, which is why I repeatedly say that it's so important to bring back that innocence. Without that innocence, I think we are nowhere.
But you've also talked about things which most heroes do not talk about in their books. I'm going to come to the part about your mother. Again, I'm going to read this out. And why this hit me was because I have a 9-year-old niece, and the idea of her having to face something like this, it really affected me. I went out in the scorching heat looking for Ma, who would often flee from the house in her panic and distress. Outside the house was the 46 degrees Celsius heat and the derision of ignorant villagers who called Ma Bauri, or crazy. The elders did not want to go out and bear the embarrassment of searching for her, so the task fell to me, the youngest, to scour the village, find her and bring her back. This was my lead-in duty all year around for many years. Sometimes I would trudge around the village on foot, asking people in neighboring villages if they'd seen her pass by. At other times, I would have the use of the elders' bicycle. I was too short for it, like I was too young for my task perhaps. The only way for a 10-year-old to use an adult's bicycle was the kenchi or scissors style. When I found her, I would beg, cry, desperately try and persuade her to come home with me. There was the distress of a child, seeing her mother agitated and adrift like that, and the fear that Ba, my father, would be furious if I couldn't bring her back. When she was brought home, the priority was just to soothe her agitation. But even when she was subdued, she would look confused, disturbed by the sudden shift of reality. So, there are two questions here. One is, have you ever brought this into your movies, etc., this whole aspect? And did this then bring you to Satyarthi ji, in the sense that the fight for your own childhood, did it bring you to somebody who works with children so much? And the second question is, why did you bring this into your book? I mean, most people want to make themselves into heroes. They want to talk about how they succeeded in life. You haven't brought any of those aspects to this book at all.
I think your journey, your success is, I've never measured that. When people say about awards or money or anything, and coming from that humble background, I think my mother played a vital role to what I am today, in the sense I was, in a way, father to my mother. And the journey, seeing, these were secrets which stays with you when you grow up as an adult, whether you're successful, you have money or not, but they're very deep, own, which never goes. And I walked that out as a medicine. as something which I need to heal myself. If I have to heal myself, either I would have made a film or write the book, but before even portraying that story to anybody or saying to anybody, I've spoken to many friends about it, but I still could not heal. But I started walking with other children. So which is where what Satyathiji has done, to children or many other places where it made me heal. Today it is absolutely a healing factor where I say this is what has happened, and that's a true story. Imagine so many women go through that in this country with mental health, they will never talk about it. So that's how I ended the chapter, is also probably by that time, if the world would have understood what she was going through, she would have probably, be alive today. But my way of getting out of is you use that same weapon, same wound to be with other children, and whatever the way you bring that out to yourself.
So that's why so many of your movies are around children, at least your original movies are about children?
Yeah, it's most of my films are around children and women. And then I shifted to environment. I thought it's an important time to tell those stories.
So now my question comes to Jingaburu's Curse. How, considering the book and the movie were being made, the series and the book were being written at the same time and made at the same time, how do they influence each other?
Very interestingly, it's a thriller, okay? The thriller begins with, like I said, every society all over the world, in fact, from Brazil to India to tribals, we all believe in certain stories and legends, and those legends and stories, even I would say, if you go to many old temples, these temples were not just religious, they were placed those temples for certain reason. Like I said, if you go to Harishankar, one of the closest places to my place, there's a Shiva temple on the top of the hill. And then suddenly later you realize in the modern time that has the most precious bauxite on earth. That hill, feeds water 12 months in a year to 3 rivers. The day that goes, 3 rivers dies down. So coming to the film, the series I have done, it's simple one tribal's legend that they have to protect this hill. And one day they found that somebody took over. Because somebody, most powerful man on earth, found the precious uranium. Here it goes. And it's a journey from that basic thing to nuclear power. So we suddenly come and say that we're so powerful, we can do anything, but not realizing that you are your own enemy. You're creating poison for yourself. It's basically you're devastating your own home, earth. There's no second home, but we don't realize that. And I thought this is which is what suddenly in 2 days, if you see, there are a lot of people talking. It's India's first sci-fi series, which is climate fiction thriller series. And it is a very powerful thriller series because the amount of research gone and the way the research happened, and we tried to do, Sony Picture did a tremendous job supporting such a series, because I initially realized that nobody would support such big platforms, but it's incredible to see how they supported, and you can see in the teaser that it's a pure thriller. I thought this is the way I can tell the people the story, a sort of apocalyptic story, so that people can relate to the world, what they're going through.
I'm going to read a little bit more, which is near the end. And this is about your son, Atman. One evening, we were full and sleepy after a hot meal in our boyhood home and were heading back to the town. As we passed familiar roads and landmarks, I had the car stopped suddenly. I told Atman to switch off the headlights, kill the engine, and get out of the car. We were near a large tree that I had known since I was a child, lush and green by day, but dark and rustling ominously in the quiet night. In just a little while, a twinkle appeared in the dark shadows of the leaves. It was followed by another, and then another, till slowly, like diyas on Diwali, one by one, dozens of twinkling spots of light brought the ghostly tree alive, moving leisurely among the branches. My son watched open-mouthed as the tree glowed with the sparkling white light of the fireflies, radiating their luminance into the soft, inky night. For these moments, the wonder in his adult's eyes was the wonder of a child held in thrall by the astonishing, majestic beauty of nature. Is there any message that you want Atman and the rest of us to get out of this book at the end?
So this is one of the stories. In our villages, there are a lot of places where we say that don't go to that place, don't touch that tree, this tree. I said that's the way I showed him the reality. That what is the story? This is a forest, almost like small patch of forest created by Baba and other villagers, and the villagers created a story that there is a ghost. Nobody should go there because in the night they started cutting trees. Okay, so that's how I took him in the night to show that this is the ghost, this is the reality. So the villagers, two of the villagers who created the story. So which is why stories are important.
Fabulous. Thanks. Now, shall we open it up to questions if anyone has any? I'm sure you do.
No one has read the book, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
I'm sorry I had to cut that short because we are very anal about timing. So, like all good things, this too has come to an end. And on behalf of the Prabha Khaitan Foundation, I thank our chief guest, the Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi, High Commissioner Ellis, the star author Nila Madhab Panda, the extremely erudite and versatile Makarand Deshpande, and last but not the least, Ritika Kochar, for conducting this superbly engrossing session. Thank you. I also express thanks to all the guests present here today for making this event a roaring success. Ladies and gentlemen, the author will be outside signing books for you in case any of you would like to pick up a copy. Have a magical evening and good night.